Welcome back to On the Couch. I am here with Akilah Riley-Richardson. We're talking about toxic relationships, and this is our second segment where we started talking about love avoidant and love addicts. And we talked about the fact that these are two extremes, and oftentimes based on how we learned or saw relationships when we were growing up, we tend to fall into one of these two extremes, or we have a bit of both. And Akilah, during the break, we were talking about the fact that these people tend to attract each other.
Most definitely, because they kind of have needs. The love avoidant can get their needs met when the love addict, and the love addict can get their needs met when the love avoidant. You know, and interestingly, though they are very different, they share struggles along the same plane. Meaning that, so for example, the love avoidant person has a strong fear of abandonment, and that's because their fear is, please let me meet your needs. Please make me feel that I'm needed. If I'm not needed here, then you're going to leave me. And the love addict also has that fear, right? That person is probably a person who was abandoned as a child in different ways. And so they often feel that this person will leave, so they need to depend on that person and hold on to that person very, very tightly.
Can we think about like an example of how this can happen in an everyday situation? How this might show up?
So for example, let's talk about social media, WhatsApp and phone calls, right? So the love addict would need to be checked in, would need to get a check-in and a call
and if
very,
you
very
don't
often.
Call me and you don't check in with me, who are you checking in with?
Who are you checking in with? But in particular, when you don't check in with me, my fear of abandonment is amplified.
Yes.
Yeah.
So automatically I go to the place that you are going to leave me because you don't care enough to check in.
But here's the thing. Sometimes the love avoidant who has this need to be needed, interestingly, when that person does not reach out to them, that person may also feel this fear of abandonment. Why don't you feel that I am needed in your life? Why don't you feel you could call me for this? So I actually see this sometimes in marriages when a wife or husband would not look to their partner for something. The person who is particularly love avoidant may get upset. Why is it that you don't need me?
Yes.
I am your one and only. I am here to be your partner and to be your protector, your savior, the person you're supposed to rely on. Yes. And it can happen for both men and women, right?
Yes.
So even there you could see the strong fears of abandonment. Don't leave me. You need me. I need you. I need to be needed.
And now it's playing out on social media.
Yeah, definitely playing out on social media.
Yes, and we see that a lot in our practice, where oftentimes social media becomes the symptom, not the problem, but the symptom, and the way the problem manifests. And we can get distracted thinking it's about this, but it's really about these fears, this fear of abandonment.
Yeah. In addition, one of the other struggles that we see often is vulnerability. Persons who are love avoidant actually struggle with vulnerability because their needs are often not met. They often don't know how to say what I need, right? I need to be loved. I need to be held. I need to be heard, right? They don't even see relationships as sites of getting their needs met. Whereas the person who is a love addict would be extremely, what we call, and I hate this word to be quite honest, needy. Yeah. But that person would basically, need that person to affirm them all the time, to check in on them. So they are extremely vulnerable, too vulnerable, too open. Whereas the person who is love avoidant is very closed. I like to say that persons who are love avoidant struggle with having too many boundaries, and persons who are love addicts, have too little boundaries.
Have too little.
And we've talked about before protective and containing boundaries, right? Protective boundaries protect you from other people, and containing boundaries protect other people from you. When you are love avoidant, you'd find that you don't allow yourself to share. Your containing boundaries are very, very high, very, very strong. And when you are a love addict, your containing boundaries are, absent.
Yes.
You believe you can say whatever you want. You can ask for whatever you want. You can demand for whatever you want.
And so how this plays out in relationships, often I think about like that whole pursue or withdraw pattern and dynamic comes up one time. Because I'm pursuing you, I need this. Oh my gosh, you are overwhelming, leave me alone.
And that's exactly it. And we've seen, and I know we need to talk about that in another video, we've seen the ways in which love avoidant people can begin to feel overwhelmed. You're smothering me. That's a big word that comes up. You're smothering me. I feel like I have to meet all of your needs. You need too much. You need too much. Whereas the person who is a love addict is saying, you don't meet any of my needs. You don't care about me.
Yes.
You know, and it could, we see it all the time playing out in this very, very toxic cycle. And what happens is the more that you need me, is the more that I pull away, you know. And the pulling away can lead in some very interesting behavior, which we'll talk about in another video.
So, I mean, and the thing that we're not talking about is vulnerability.
Right.
Yeah. And then there are all these things about how do I show up? How do you see me? How do we work through that? I think we could probably talk about one more issue that comes up and how these different types work with it.
Obligations.
All right.
So persons who are love avoidant feel intensely obligated. They feel like they have a duty to be there for their partner, whereas the person who is a love addict doesn't feel that. In fact, they think that you are obligated to me. I want to just kind of point out that when I feel these intense obligations, I can begin to resent my partner.
Right.
So persons who are love avoidant actually begin to resent and get angry with their partners. Stuff like passive aggressiveness we see in relationships. And then what I've also noticed is that love avoidance actually can engage in acting out behavior outside of the marriage, outside of the relationship, because the relationship is not a place where they can get their needs met. They feel as if they're bombarded with all of these obligations. So stuff like gambling, infidelity, sexual acting out, it's actually
seeking
typical.
Emotional intimacy in other people. In fact, just opening themselves up to emotional intimacy outside of a relationship.
But control emotional intimacy. Because these people have a deep fear of being smothered.
Yes.
So getting into a sexual relationship outside of the marriage that has no ties and bonds,
so
it's a lot safer.
It's much safer because I'm married as well.
Right.
So I don't need to. The expectation is less.
Yes.
And it becomes a safe place for me to do this. And so oftentimes what shows up in our practice in our office when we see infidelity is so many other things going on that we need to unpack.
Most definitely.
So much more to talk about. Thank you so much for bringing this to us, Akilah. We're going to be back with one final segment where we kind of close off this topic and talk about some of the things that cause anxiety and stress and toxicity between persons in relationships. Thank you so much for joining us.